Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's event. I'm Laura Dillon with MS Dynamics World, and we're here today for an informative session on Dynamics AI adoption and momentum, guided by the SAFE AI framework. Our presenters today are Chris Segurado and Ivan Cole, both with Mazars, and it's my pleasure to welcome them here with us today. So please know that we do welcome your questions. You can feel free to type those in at any time during their discussion, and someone from the Mazars team will follow up with you directly after the event. So, Chris, without any further delay, I'm going to hand things off to you to get us started.
Awesome. Thanks for joining. Before we start, as the title says, today's webinar is about generative AI and the impacts on Dynamics customers, challenges, opportunities, risks, and how we can support your organization with AI adoption, right? And maybe, Ivan, to pick up the audience, maybe we can talk a little bit about what is generative AI itself to lay the foundation for the further conversation.
Good question. And we start off conversations with clients talking about AI as a general frame, and there's a lot of things that get bundled into that. Clients think about data science, machine learning, robotics, automation. All of that seems to get lumped into AI, but generative AI is more about the large language models behind OpenAI's ChatGPT and the GPT-4 models that Microsoft hosts in the Azure OpenAI service. So we like to frame that out because it's important when we have discussions about what are the best use cases for generative AI. We want to understand the differences. Things like inventory forecasting, we always were able to do with machine learning and Azure services to let us do that. But generative AI is about the language interpretation and how we can ask questions called prompts and get really good responses. And the better we ask the questions, the better responses we get.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, good foundation for the further conversation. Maybe that's a good point in time to talk about some of Microsoft's Copilot program. Microsoft announced and introduced some Copilot programs, right, across multiple product offerings, from customer insights, marketing, to supply chain, the supply chain control center, right? So maybe we can highlight some of those to make sure that the audience understands what is available or what is becoming available in the near future.
That's great, Chris. And we all know that Microsoft had a very early lead with OpenAI and introduced Bing Chat early on and gave us the ability to use GPT-4 models and the ability to browse the internet for current information. So that was a great start. But they didn't really stop there. So Microsoft has put out a lot of announcements and visual demos and visions about what they see for generative AI in Microsoft 365, which is Office, Outlook, PowerPoint, and the applications we use every day, and also in Dynamics and where that's going. Some of the best examples I've seen were, pointing to a statement of work Word document and asking to create a PowerPoint deck of the scope, deliverables, timeline, risks, all the things you'd have to put in a PowerPoint deck for a kickoff meeting, and it would use the content of that document securely because it's your private document and generate that PowerPoint presentation automatically. So that's a really, really good vision about what's to come. Microsoft early on had, as you know, being the big integration. They also had showings of what's coming in Microsoft 365 Copilot, and they had some early adopter customers that were helping them work through that. One of the first revelations that I had using just standard ChatGPT was the Visio data visualization that I posted on LinkedIn, where I was able to describe a business process in words and have it create a Visio data visualization chart that has to go into Excel to automatically draw a flow chart. And although the example I used was for a Dynamics retail point of sale function, the same process could work for anything, course, we hope Microsoft will embed that directly into Visio, but it was a really simple copy and paste, and it automatically drew the flow chart. So that was a great revelation and got me really thinking about what is possible with generative AI. Now, Microsoft had some early releases of Teams Premium, which would record a meeting and provide a transcript and then do an auto summarization and be able to, assign tasks and key takeaways. That product was embedded into Teams pretty early on. Microsoft also released Viva Sales, which basically is an add-in that sits in Outlook and it connects to your CRM data and allows you to generate responses to customer requests or understanding, opportunities that exist, customers' recent requests, or if a case was recently submitted, understanding all those key data elements and allow you to automatically generate a response. You still need a human in the loop, so the user still has to finalize, edit, confirm, and click send, but that tool was available early on for CRM. Now, one of the other significant releases Microsoft had, again, early on, is Copilot for GitHub. So for an experienced developer, having the ability to have a generative AI assistant, essentially, in the code editor while you're coding to generate code as you're working is an amazing feat and helps increase the productivity, I'm going to say, for an experienced developer by over 55%. There's some reports that show that when new code is written, that it could improve efficiency by over 45%, and not to mention that 75% of developers feel kind of more confident and satisfied while they're writing code that some of the mundane things are done for them, so they could kind of think big. But I also want to point out again that it helps, I think, for an experienced developer. It's not going to replace a developer, in my opinion, and that if you're not an experienced developer, it's also possible to go down a rabbit hole and it could do things and it won't compile, and then you ask it again, it won't compile. You might eventually get it to work, versus the example of an experienced developer who could see a result and say, oh, this looks 90% right, but I see there's an error here. I'm going to correct it. It compiles, it works, and they're good. So again, it'll really help an experienced developer. It'll be a while before it automates for an inexperienced developer. There's been some great announcements at Inspire for Bing Chat Enterprise and more on Copilot for Dynamics 365 Sales. Lots more coming. I love what they're doing with project operations. The concept that you could generate a project status report looking at budget to actuals, tasks completed last week, tasks scheduled next week, resources, risks, things like that, automatically is a great thing for managing a project. And I think we're going to see other great things come there. The other thing I want to really point out is when we talk about how Dynamics customers can get ready, I think Microsoft has drawn a path better than any other company I've seen for enterprises to run generative AI securely within their tenancies. So if instead of using the general ChatGPT service, they were to use the Microsoft Azure OpenAI service in their tenancy, it's using the Microsoft version of the GPT-4 model and running that securely. Also allowing you to use cognitive search and storage accounts in Azure to incorporate corporate data securely, because by default, the terms of use of the Microsoft OpenAI service that they're running is that they will not share data, your data, with OpenAI or anyone else on further training models. So there's a real good, important security concern there. So Microsoft did a really good job of paving the way for clients to get ready.
Yeah, and thanks for the insights. Maybe adding on to and highlighting some of the Copilot programs just for the audience and for creating awareness. Another very interesting Copilot program is the Copilot program for Dynamics 365 marketing, right? With customer insights as well, where you can facilitate, for example, segmentation and can via natural language can prompt and segment your customer base, right? Or you could also generate emails with a specific sentiment, right? In Dynamics 365 marketing, for example, saying the purpose for this email is a charity event in 2023. Prior, you can do the segmentation of your customer records, saying who is likely to attend the charity event again and was there last year, and is maybe based in a geographic location, and you can get those outputs and reuse those. For the email generation as well, you can, as I said, specify the sentiment, right? Should it be adventurous? Should it be in a specific tone? And it creates or proposes options for you that you can via drag and drop into a template. And then, of course, the human is still in the loop and will not be replaced. But the heavy lift of the work can be facilitated by the Copilot program or by the Copilot features. The human is still in the loop and adjusts, revises, enhances the output you get. It makes you more efficient and more competitive in your job, right? Another one is the customer service Copilot program, right? Where you as a customer service agent can, via natural language again, use AI to gather information and also propose sentiments or responses to your clients based on that. Again, it makes you more efficient from that standpoint. There's another one in the supply chain side. I mean, I'm leading a supply chain team here, so I'm very interested about that. In the supply chain center, the news Copilot program, right, where based on news, it flags the impact on your orders, right? And says, hey, you have a PO outstanding with XYZ vendor, it flags it for you. You can be proactive instead of reactive.
Right.
Again, you're more competitive in the marketplace and be more efficient in your operations. And it can also give you then a proposed email for that vendor saying, hey, I hear there is a flooding in New York. Is my order PO number 123 still good to go? You can be proactive, right, and communicate with the vendor, and you may get a response. Oh yeah, we may switch to a different warehouse to get the delivery to you in a specific ETA. So you can react. There's another feature in Dynamics 365 supply chain management. It's a workspace where you can track PO changes, and it can flag for you if there was a PO change, right? I mean, it might sound very simple, but if you take a look at an enterprise level, there are many PO changes, so very hard to keep track of it, and seeing the impact of it, right? To have one workspace to see all those changes and a low or a higher impact on it. High impact means if they have trickle down effects to patched orders, right, to production orders that are relying on that product, the purchase order, for example, you can be proactive, resolve, and use those Copilot AI capabilities to be more efficient in your job.
Those are great examples. It's going to be exciting to see what comes to Dynamics as time moves on. So great
Agreed.
Examples.
Thanks. Maybe that's a good time to hover over to the SAFe AI framework.
Sure.
Let's maybe introduce the SAFe AI framework.
So we've been tracking from the very beginning Microsoft's early entree into this market with OpenAI, and been putting a lot of thought into what we would need to do to help our clients and for our own businesses to adopt AI. And then we ended up coming up with the SAFe AI framework, which focuses on secure, adaptable, factual, and ethical best practices and all the guardrails around those four major areas. So on the security, it's basically understanding when you shouldn't share your data or not sharing sensitive data. The things, or never put a tax ID or something personal in a prompt. And you should use the posting rule on LinkedIn. If you wouldn't post something publicly on LinkedIn, then don't post it in ChatGPT. And it's also understanding what is the right tool for the right job. So there was a lot of hype around, if you did put in sensitive information into the standard ChatGPT prompt, it could share your data to train the models, and there were companies concerned about that. And the default terms of use state that you agree to share your data with OpenAI to train models for the good of everyone. Now, you could opt out of that now, except you then lose your history thread, which is not ideal. But if you had used the OpenAI playground, which is the API area, not quite as easy to use, but lots of functionality, almost the same, if not more. But the default terms of use there state that OpenAI will not share your data for training models. So that was an important distinction. And of course, Microsoft always, by their default terms of use, won't share your data and allow you to run it in your tenancy. So it was important to understand the entire security framework around this and how to use it and what to do, what not to do. And then on the adaptable, what we realized is we started the conversation about understanding the differences between data science, machine learning, and generative AI. So we framed that conversation out early because we have to analyze the best processes for generative AI. It's a language model, so it's language-based, not science-based. It's getting better in terms of, I meant math-based, excuse me, in terms of math with the code interpreter and things like that, and we'll see all that get much better. But the processes that had the kind of biggest gain and benefit were like marketing processes, content generation, ideation, creativity, all these things that people spend a lot of time thinking about. Whereas what if they could jumpstart all those thoughts and get lots of content to get them going? My experience is that when I'm looking for to ideate on something, if I focus on the prompt really well, I can get a really good result. It'll get me, if I'm lucky, 80% of the way there. I still feel like I got to edit 20%. It's not perfect. So it's important to understand the best processes and the best way to get the result, which leads me to factual, because you need a human in the loop. It's not to the point where things are on autopilot. It's apropos that Microsoft named their products Copilot, because it's not the pilot, it's the Copilot, it's the assistant that will help you navigate. So you do need a human in the loop, and you do have to verify your sources. So that's why I really like what Microsoft did with Bing Chat, because they browse the internet. So you could actually ask for sources and it'll give you links, and you can click on them and verify that it's right. Sometimes they're wrong, but sometimes you could then do your own search and say, hey, I want to verify this fact. You can even ask a secondary prompt and get more sightings, and you can successfully verify the results. And it's critical that we do that you can't just leave things on autopilot. And then the ethical part is really understanding, how are we going to use this in the right way? And part of that means understanding the terms of use. That OpenAI has terms of use that says you agree not to use this for harm or for fraud or things like that, the obvious things. So we have to make sure people in the organization are aware and that we have good policies of what to do, what not to do. So you do want to use it for ideation. You do want to do it for creativity. I would suggest you want to do it for research. Just be aware that if you're researching something that needs current information, you have to use either Bing Chat or a plugin with ChatGPT that will browse the internet to get current information. And again, back to the human in the loop, is that you need to make sure it's factual. You have to verify those sources. But it's important to understand what that internal policy is, what the governance is of that, how companies have to prepare internally, both their infrastructure, their systems, their development systems, to make sure that they're securely and responsibly using AI within the organizations. So that framework was our point of view on how we would work with our clients to make sure that they implemented and adopted in the best way possible. We also are releasing a workshop that would help do some initial education for client teams and stakeholders, so they understood what the different technology options are, and then more importantly, do ideation about collecting ideas, like what are the best processes within the organization that are best for generative AI. What we also find is a lot of times we get good ideas that go to the data science, machine learning teams. That's great. We don't want to. We want to collect all those good ideas of essentially what are the problems we need to solve, and then figure out what's the right tool to solve those jobs. So doing that ideation and prioritization, try and do some kind of scoring, like a RICE method where you have reach, impact, confidence, effort, and we do a little bit of story pointing so we could figure out, well, what would the effort be to kind of integrate this to our CRM system or whatever we want to do, and get some kind of impact so we could then prioritize and figure out what are the top use cases, and then help clients build a roadmap on how are we going to adopt AI and do it in the best way possible for our organizations.
Yeah, on point. I think it was the perfect segue into the last bullet point, right, or the last topic you want to discuss. How would you as an organization, or how are we as Mazars supporting organizations adopting AI,
right,
AI solutions with that guiding principle of the safe AI adoption framework, right? Maybe we can highlight some more points here.
Absolutely. So the more companies we speak to, the more of them want guiding principles around this. There's a lot of questions about security and adaptability and factuality and the ethical part of it. And our goal is to help customers really address those head on. That's why I think the Safe AI framework is simple, yet it's really powerful because it covers these major areas that every organization really is faced with. And again, one of the best things that I've seen from Microsoft is that they are drawing the path for us all to securely adopt AI within their organizations. I've seen some companies overact a bit that banned the use of some of these technologies, but some that have banned the use of the technologies have opened up the Azure OpenAI playground so that customers can select users ideate, again, securely in their tenancies without the risk of sharing data externally on the outside. So I think it's really important for them to look at the most secure ways to do that. Microsoft has painted the path, I think, for us all to follow in the best way. And our job is to help clients follow that framework, apply our workshops, help you come up with the internal policies, the governance, the perspective, the stance that you need to take within your organizations and externally on how to best adopt AI within your organizations.
Awesome answers. Thanks so much. Okay, and here I think we are at the end of our webinar today. If you listened in and you're interested or you're curious about AI and AI adoption, you face challenges around that, we are more than happy to get in touch and speak to you about it, and make sure you're doing it the right way with those guiding Safe AI principles. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Ivan and Chris, thank you so much. That was just such a really informative and just engaging discussion between the two of you. A lot of great information to unpack there. I think people are really going to enjoy this presentation. We did record today's event as well, so we'll be able to make that available. And if you had a question that you typed in, you can look forward to a response from someone from the Mazars team directly after the session. So thanks again, both of you, and thanks everybody for joining today.
Thank you.
Thank you.